we actually have a lawyer. So usually I'm doing Mexican musicians, but today we're not doing it. Tonight we're not doing it. We're in Chicago, the city of Chicago, and I actually have a very well-known, and I know I always say the best, but seriously, Ben,
Thank you.
you're very, very recognized here in Chicago.
Thank you.
Like everywhere I go, like let's just say music, like artist-wise, like Summer Smash, you're there. But if not, a content creator has you in their content. Why are you so involved with content creators? I want to know that, because like you're also involved with a lot of musicians, which you're tapped in the culture.
Well, why am I involved with content creators? I guess that's just everybody who's involved in entertainment's a content creator these days, whether you're a musician, someone making food, or even a lawyer. You have to make content to really market yourself and get involved. And I don't know. I mean, my early friends that got me into this entire business elevated chapter are like a media company, and they've always been making like funny videos and being themselves, making fun music and everything. And as a result, I've always had a soft spot in my heart for content creators, especially people who are Gen Z and younger, because you guys have these opportunities that a lot of people that are millennials and older didn't have. And it's really cool to see you guys seize it, make money with a camera, and do something where you can like really make money off the internet, as they say.
You're also, wait, how old are you two, Ben?
I'm 32. I'm not in my 20s.
You're 30 years young. A man's life doesn't start till their 30s. That's what I heard.
I know. That's what I hear. It's true.
But I also did, you said you were like one of the youngest lawyers in your class, or one of the top youngest ones in your class. Is that right? Or
except for a short period of time, I was probably like one of the youngest trial lawyers as a part of like the special bar for a while. But that was earlier in my career when I was a prosecutor and government defense attorney in my 20s.
In your 20s.
Yeah, no, here in Chicago, there's this court called the Northern District of Illinois, and any big top-hitting case is filed there in Chicago. And so they have a special bar or membership called the trial bar. And so when I got admitted, I think in 2019, maybe, no, it wasn't, was it 2018? No, it was 2019, I think.
Okay.
I think I was the youngest guy at the time, actually, because I was only a year out of law school.
Oh, wow. I also hear too, the bar test is, a lot of people don't even like pass it, and it costs a lot of money to actually take it, right? How much does it cost?
Yeah, so anybody looking to go to law school, this is something that you should be keeping in mind. The bar exam is no joke. It's a commitment. It's something that you really have to stay focused to for 3 months after law school. This is actually the most messed up part. Everyone stresses about the LSAT, but they never actually worry about the bar exam. And yeah, so here's the cruel joke of life. You can go all the way through law school. If you can't pass the bar exam, you're not a lawyer.
Wow.
So it's like not really that big a deal to graduate law school. It's a bigger deal if you pass the bar exam.
Did you take it once, or how many times did you just take it?
I took it once.
And you passed it?
Yes, I passed it. Now, granted, I don't know what my score is. People who take the bar exam now take a slightly different version than the one I did. But if you fail for whatever reason, law students watching this video, it's not the end of the world. My best friend failed, and she actually passed her second time, but she works for one of the biggest law firms in the world, making absurd amounts of money. So, it's not the end of the world, but I know some people who never passed the bar exam and pretty much chose a different profession.
Well, before we actually dive into the questions I actually have prepared for you, I actually have this one. So now we have a lot of young lawyers or a lot of people wanting to be lawyers, right?
Yeah.
But ChatGPT now exists with cheating, of course, but it also could be a helpful tool. Is that dangerous for you in your eyes, that knowing that there could be a lawyer in 10 years from now that passed, maybe not the bar exam, but their bachelor's degree to pursue their law degree with ChatGPT? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Someone asked me a similar question, but with Kanye and making an album with AI. And, I remember Kanye, I know very controversial figure now as the filming of this video.
Still the GOAT.
Maybe, I guess. I wouldn't say that if you're gonna who knows what we'll do tomorrow.
To be honest.
But, someone asked me what do I think about it? And I tell people this, AI is meant to augment anything that you do. It cannot be the sole replacement for creativity or for independent thinking. At the end of the day, it's kind of like the Sphinx. The answer you give it is only as good as the question you ask it. And so in this instance, I'd really say, like, people who are studying and learning, learn how to use AI, learn how to use AI to teach yourself, learn how to use AI to confirm and maybe understand things that you're wondering. It's a perfect tutor and study aid. But if you're using it to simply just do the project and not learn or understand, you're not going to really grow or develop the skills. And so, realistically, you should try to do everything the old fashioned way. You should try to write an email. You should try to think independently and then use it to revise like your work. You now have no excuse for never having a typo in your essay. But at the end of the day, the clever hook that you come up with, the thing that you come up with to make your argument, that's human independent creativity and it can do it for you, but I don't know why, but I can kind of tell when AI makes something. And
Mm.
so when AI is based on something that a human thought of, it's much harder to discern.
So how does Ben the lawyer use AI, to exercise with it, to play around with it, to organize yourself with it, How do you use it as a lawyer?
And you're asking trade secrets. Honestly, I kind of credit AI for the reason I was able to go out on my own very early on. I had a good friend, my first patient, my first client ever actually told me about ChatGPT back in 2022, 2023.
Okay.
No, actually, it's 2022. Yeah. And it was just kind of coming out. I think everybody found out about it 6 months, 8 months later. And he was like, yo, you got to really check this out. He even said, watch what's going to replace your job. And he didn't really quite do the job well, but it worked well enough that I understood, okay, there's something here. Like I can at least learn the basics of some stuff using it where I have knowledge gaps or kind of wrote routine like tasks such as, writing emails, something that like an assistant would do is where it really came in handy. And because I know how to write these emails, because I spent the first 6 years of my practice at that time, like focusing on just this type of stuff, I already knew what was going to be done wrong. And so, seeing like, okay, I don't want to write in this tone. I want to write in a friendlier tone, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. It kind of took the thinking power out of it. So as much as I hate relying on AI, I think it has its value, but I think you can really over rely on it. And so where I use AI and I use it effectively, at least in my opinion, is when I'm researching. I've already done my own independent research. I've read the cases, studied the law myself, and now I have a bunch of like case law. And I've handwritten out my own outline, my own argument for what, should really be said. My client has these three issues at stake. This is the evidence that supports the legal issue. These are the weak points that I have. And so I kind of outline and I talk to the AI like it's a person,
Right.
as if I'm talking to a younger person and say, hey, I need to have this, this, and that drafted, highlighting these exact issues and relying on these cases. Look at this case, look at that case to make this argument. And because it's a closed universe of case law and closed facts, and it has, 50 samples of how I like to write,
Right.
it ends up creating something very quickly for me. Now,
Bingo. I like what you say that because it's for you, right? So it's like when you said also earlier, you said a lot of people would say AI are going to replace jobs or replace you. It's the people that take advantage of it that's going to replace your job. You're taking advantage of it. So you could replace, or not replace, but you could outcompete your competition. You could
yeah,
put yourself in a higher pedestal because you're using that leverage, just like the internet when it came out 20, 30 years ago, right?
exactly.
But I like that. Yeah, I like when you mention that.
Yeah, and to your point and stuff, leveraging it and using it is really the real goal and key to it. So, I think a lot of people don't realize that, you can use it, but for those who don't know, so here's the thing. AI is never going to replace the actual human, at least not yet. I'm sure it will eventually. We're already so close to it being there.
Super close.
But in terms of, that personal aspect, it kind of viewed it as like a 3D sculptor. You know how you have to cut off some edges and some things down?
Perfected, yeah.
That's what you have to do with AI. And that's the part where the human comes in. Because at the end of the day, the AI doesn't know what you want. There's no brain chip in you that's going to ultimately replace. I mean, shit, maybe there will be, but that would be like, something that would be the thing that goes, oh, it knows what you're thinking.
Well, let me ask you this, because I feel like a lot of people our age, or at
Mhm.
least like around my age, ask you, Ben, what do I do if I get caught with this or this? What's a legal advice you wish everyone knew? You know, something that just one thing that's very important. You're just like, wow, I just wish you guys knew that.
Verbal agreements are not as good as written agreements.
Oh,
Um, just because you create something independently doesn't mean you enforce it. So, to all my content creators out there, all my musicians, all my artists, visual artists, my videographers, understand copyright law. Understand that you can't sue or enforce an agreement unless you have a copyright already registered.
okay.
So, a lot of people like to rely on what's called common law rights, where it's, the rights that we've had since the Magna Carta. But that's, ultimately you want to be proactive in anything that you are trying to make money off of or protect.
And what's one of the biggest mistakes people do while taking legal advice? You know, or
Um,
something they get confused about. Because there's a lot of gurus on the internet saying
mm,
they can't do this too, they can't do that, but you yourself are a lawyer and you're just like, well, that's BS. They can.
yeah, so there's a common lawyer saying that it depends. And understanding that the law is not black and white, there is no firm answer to any situation. I deal in the law of gray area.
Mm,
The reason why I'm hired is because the answer is never clear. Sometimes, well, usually there's not two sides to one story. There's only one side. It's my clients,
okay.
but I handle the tough issues where there is no clear answer. And sometimes you have to be a little creative with coming up with a solution. And so, if you say, oh my gosh, if I use this, you know, will I get sued? The answer is, well, it depends on how you use it.
Ah. Also, this one's also too as well, since you're also a defense attorney, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Or what happens when you're going through a trial? I don't know if you've had this an experience, or
Okay.
maybe you've heard someone else where they committed something,
Hmm.
but you're defending the person saying that they didn't. How do you react to that? Like, let's just say, for an example, like a murder case.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have, but I'm just saying, like the O.J. Simpson trial, right? Like he had to tell a lawyer.
Well, there's a billboard in Cook County, Illinois that says just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty.
Ah,
Remember, you have civil rights.
right.
And, if your rights get violated in any case, there's a thing called fruit of the poisonous tree. So, say you got a gun on you, it's
Okay.
illegal. But say they found it by searching through illegal ways, can't sue you or they can't prosecute you for it.
Right, right.
So that's like a big thing. But, typically I try not to have clients that, do bad things and they want me to cover up or lie for them. I have an ethical code. I can't lie to the court. I can present a good defense or argument that paints your situation in the best light, but I can't lie for you, you
Mm,
know? And that's the real reason why, I'm a lawyer. I have currency. The reason why people take me seriously is because I don't lie. And, sometimes when you have to really help a client out, yeah, sometimes you really have to say, no, they're innocent, they're innocent, they're innocent. But you might be doing it for a negotiating position or like leverage or strategy. But you have to be real honest with your client, going, dude, you did this, and I can drag this out, take it to trial,
hmm.
but you might be better off by just simply taking a plea deal. And so,
What's the worst sentence you've witnessed that one of your clients have gotten?
um, well, the worst sentence, well, my clients have never gone to jail. Well, actually, no. One of my clients did go to jail, but they were seeking a very large amount of time against her. She was
Wow.
locked up in Japan for smuggling 25 kilos of meth.
Okay.
And it was a very serious allegation. She had family and everything.
Wow.
And so I was hired to really help coordinate and make sure that, her legal defense, because the proof of her innocence was back home in the United States, was presented fairly in an open way to the Japanese court. But, simply put, she took accountability, represented the best light, and she got a much reduced sentence than what she was facing. And
Wow.
so, that's a very serious thing. And that was a situation where it's like, look, we got to present our client in the best possible light, especially given the evidence that was presented in open court. Um, but the worst sentence actually I've ever seen was one that I handed someone.
Wow.
Yeah, I was working on a case and everything involving some fraudsters and everything, and there was a bank teller who embezzled a lot of money from a bank, and it
Wow.
was very sad. She, had a gambling addiction, but the way she did it was so heinous. Like, she was openly lying. She was running like a scheme behind it. And realistically, it was one of those things where we had to take accountability. And so we did have to hand out like a good amount of jail time because it was quite a big, sizable amount of money. Another one was a car theft ring.
Could you say like the sentence or how long, or is that
No,
not
I'd
okay?
rather not disclose or anything because if you look me up on my record or so,
You can
you'll,
see.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That would be too identifiable. And so with confidentiality, it's like I'm allowed to talk about some things, that are public knowledge or not associated with me. But
Uh-huh.
it's like, in terms of other things, it's just general best course, like, stay out of it. I've had some losers on the internet like try to come after me for it, but it's not a big deal.
So what he's trying to say is he plead the fifth. That's the legal way to do it.
Not to plead the fifth, but let's just say it's, I have a duty to keep it
Professional.
confidential.
No,
And so
100%.
oftentimes people will see me going, well, you're promoting this client or talking about it. And it's like, well, I'm trying to put my clients in a position to win. And
Yeah.
a big part of my ethos has been really giving back to people who've helped me and good, but, get to where I am. And so you asked why I like to work with content creators. Content creators have been the people who've really told me about this community of people who are being taken advantage of. And, I really love helping people out because we're spreading legal information, legal awareness, and, trying to make our community better.
So I don't really think that in my eyes, lawyers can be corrupted, right? That's because you are guys getting paid for a service, right? That's how I see it, right? But you
Yeah.
know more. Let's just say, I'm just going to throw out the bat, a criminal group, let's just say organization, let's just say cartel approaches you.
Oof.
Would you take that or would you not take that? Let's just, and if you did, would you be frowned upon in a community, or is it just another gig because you're getting paid for it, right? Because it doesn't mean you're involved.
Yeah. I remember when I was younger, somebody asked a very similar question to a lawyer when I was in high school. And the answer I got was very interesting, that you have to follow your own moral compass.
Mm.
And it depends on like what your situation is. Now, there are people who say, "Oh, this guy represents mobsters and narcos and like all kinds of like criminals." And in their mind, no, I'm representing people that are misunderstood and like, or not getting a fair shake at life, due to racism and like bigotry or class like indifferences. And so, it really depends. Like the beauty's in, the eye of the beholder. But yeah, there are lawyers who are known for representing mobsters. There's some very famous lawyers actually in Chicago
Really?
who've made a career representing narcos. Yeah, there was this one lawyer I used to or deal with all the time. And when he showed up, it was to make sure that that guy didn't take a plea. He didn't rat when he took a plea.
Well,
And
I only
so,
asked you that. Sorry for cutting you off. I only asked you about that because obviously we know there's like a trial going on, but it's taking place in Chicago, or was supposed to take place
yeah.
in Chicago with Chapo's kids or sons.
Oh, wow.
But I guess they missed trial. That's the thing I get confused about, and not just with them, but like,
Yeah.
people miss trial purposely to extend their trial. How does that work?
So you're getting a lot of things mixed up there, but
Okay.
a mistrial is a result of something bad happening in a trial.
Oh, okay.
So something that shouldn't have happened, and it violated somebody's rights, whether it's the defendants or the prosecution, the jury got tampered with, something like
Mm.
that. Now, I don't know anything about this case, and to anybody watching this, I do not know anybody affiliated with
Nothing. This is
El
from social
Chapo.
media.
Yeah,
Look.
El Chapo, like
Paquito,
El Guzman and stuff like that. No, that ain't.
Pedro Villa.
Yeah, I don't even know the guy's name right. And said, no, trust me, guys, I ain't got that kind of protection like that. But no, I mean, look, in terms of people being like associated, people charge family members all the time. I mean, look at, Hunter Biden and everything.
Yeah.
Uh, Joe Biden by extent and stuff, like all the allegations that everybody brings. The Trump family, for example, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump being investigated for all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
It's just whenever your family member is a big magnet for something, people will find ways to leak it out to different things. There's a very famous politician here in Chicago called Mike Madigan. He was the House Speaker for years, did a lot of big politics. And his daughter, Lisa Madigan, was our attorney general for so many years. She used to be my boss, you know. My first ever badge said Lisa Madigan on it. And, you know, right there by extension, no one's ever accused Lisa Madigan of wrongdoing, but because her dad's being accused of corruption, everybody always wonders, you know? And so it's that association. And it's one thing I always tell people, be careful who you put in your circle. Because if somebody's doing something bad in your circle, it gets rubbed onto everybody else. Like, you know, if one person is fleas, everybody is fleas.
It's like a cancer, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like there's a lot of famous rappers, a lot of famous groups where, you know, when I used to be a prosecutor and we investigated major rappers and people for fraud and crime, it was usually some bozo who was usually in the group, but we'd paint it out to be the big rapper as the mastermind because why? Press.
You're right.
Yeah, there's one thing the cops love, it's press.
Is there one rapper specifically?
No, I can't talk.
Okay,
But,
okay.
you know, realistically, like, you know, this is a very big one and it was here in Chicago. And that's you always have to, you know, be careful of. It's very close to home. And it's always funny. I've actually met a couple rappers I've investigated. I'm like, no, not now. Don't talk. You know?
Oh, wow. I mean, now speaking about kind of you touched the topic of politically, I know you also said at the beginning, it's all about the morals, right?
Yeah.
What you think is right. But also, too, if the bag's right, you know, because you have to make a living, too, as well.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying you're in debt, but, you know, who doesn't like to have more money, right? Because your accomplishments.
Yeah.
So there's left and right, right? Red and blue. We're just going to say that politically, right? Trump's, and then now, let's just say Kamala.
Oh,
right. And we come from Chicago, so... we're very, it comes very strict in our opinion. We're very opinionated here in Chicago, right? We're very blue, which is okay, right? I feel like everyone has the rights to have any point of view they want, but we like to be very selective about it, right? Very judgmental. So you from being from Chicago right now in Chicago, how would you approach that situation if you were offered to be a part of Trump's attorney team?
You know, one, I try to stay out of politics in general. Just one, I'm a lawyer. Two, I think Michael Jordan had a very famous saying where he said Republicans need to choose two. I try not to take a stand in these debates, but what I do stand for is when someone is being taken advantage of or when the rights of others are being infringed. Right now, we have mass deportations here in Chicago. And I have a lot of friends that, you know, are very worried. You know, they are actually U.S. citizens, but they have family members that might have crossed here illegally who are here on DACA and everything. And this is a thing that's very close to my heart personally. So, you know, I've taken it upon myself to help out people in those communities. Now, with that said, though, I have clients that are full-blown Republicans and diehard Democrats and stuff. And realistically, I can provide good legal services to them on both ends because I care about them and what they care about. Some clients I have like to use they, them pronouns. And guess what? At the end of the day, I don't care. If they want to use they, them pronouns, that's on them. And I respect it because at the end of the day, I'm trying to make money, run my business, and show my clients I care about their needs. If a client wants to, you know, tell me, hey, you know, all these things are awful and stuff, you know, the government's being ruined and everything, you know, I hear them out. I hear their concerns and I you know, talk to them about what's real, what's not real. And then the clients and stuff who are, you know, a little offhand, talking about other things, you know, I try to say, look, man, I don't want to talk to you about that. Or we can say professional, but the second someone starts getting racist, you know, bigoted, just hateful in any way towards anybody, those are the people I don't want to represent. And so to your question, you know, Donald Trump, he's a very controversial figure, you know, and I personally, I don't know what I'd do if I got, you know, asked to represent him. One, I'd be like, pay your legal bill. It would be the first thing I'd ask for. If you can't do that, I'm not taking the case.
Right.
But for example, I know an attorney right now who, you know, represents Kanye West.
Wow.
Yeah, I know him. And Kanye right now is saying he's a Nazi.
Yep.
And this individual, I look at him and I'm going to tell him right now, if he is watching this video, like, do the right thing. And I really want to help represent my clients, make sure that they get the money that they deserve. But at the end of the day, if you want to take it down to the floor on the mat, remember, you represent a guy who's saying he's a Nazi and a white supremacist. And I represent a bunch of kids who are just trying to do work for a person that they looked up to and didn't get paid by their hero.
Wow.
So it's something I take very seriously. And that's why I try not to represent bad people. Just because my client might be accused of being the worst kind of person doesn't mean that they're bad people. I used to represent prison guards and cops accused of doing heinous crimes and heinous acts.
Wow.
And I realized, like, look, when the person who's pointing one finger, they've got three fingers pointing right back at them.
Wow.
No one's an angel in this. And maybe my client made an honest mistake, but they don't deserve to have the punishment that's being sought.
I like that. I like that response. Very honest, very genuine too as well. Very well spoken too. But has there ever been a case that just kept you up at night? You know, because I know you're working 24/7, 24/7, man.
Has there ever been a case that keeps me up at night? Well, I literally had a case where last week I was doing a deposition for a huge case that you guys are all going to get to learn about come June and everything. I've kind of teased and alluded to it a couple times, but I was up till 3:30 in the morning. You know, if my opposing counsel watches this, I was up till 3:30 in the morning before that deposition, and I was there at 10 a.m. and actually, I woke up at 7 to print all my documents out.
Wow.
Yeah, got there at 10 and then crushed it all the way to 6 p.m. and stuff, to the point where I was like, dang, like I worked them left and right, you know?
Jeez. What's, in your opinion, what makes a good lawyer and what makes a bad lawyer? Let's keep it simple. What's a good lawyer to you in your eyes, and what's a bad lawyer?
I will say that's the toughest question you've asked me. I don't like to talk poorly on other lawyers because each situation is very different. I think a bad lawyer is a lawyer who doesn't listen to their clients, has no, adherence to the rule of law or respect for it. And I think that's really like, what we want to, protect and like, protect our society against, is the lawyers who give us all a bad name. I know a lot of good lawyers who really try hard every single day, and, maybe they're burdened by like, all kinds of stuff. Some lawyers believe it or not, are not perfect. They might struggle with substance abuse or like, mental health issues. But I think what makes a good lawyer is a lawyer who is there for you, one who's willing to respond, one who's willing to, talk to you, understand your problems, your concerns. Yes, the law might say X, Y, Z and everything, but I get that you're feeling a certain way. And how can I like help you come to the realization that maybe your situation is hopeless? And, the good lawyers are the ones who are willing to be patient with their clients, give them the best chance that they can get, even if they personally don't deserve it,
Right. And also, too, since you've handled many cases already and also had colleagues, too, with other cases that you've heard of, how corrupted is Chicago? Or do you think Chicago is corrupted, and how can we fix that problem here?
You're trying to get me shot, aren't you?
It's just like, there are questions that I'm interested in.
No, that's my question. That'll be a good clickbait and everything.
Just because I'm just like, man, like I always hear everything on the news too, but the news is fake, right? And I try to put like the most honest and genuine thing on the internet because I like to educate people, especially if you're around the city of Chicago, because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Walking here, summertime shite, can't get better than that.
So I'm going to say this. Chicago's not corrupt, okay? No person wakes up any day of the week and just says, how can I cheat and screw people over?
That was me this morning.
Maybe someone does, but you're a scammer, okay? Yeah. But no person like wakes up and says, hey, I'm going to go and cheat somebody as like a government worker. What often happens is somebody's influenced to do it. And it comes up to usually one of three things. Someone lied to cover up a mistake or something that they did wrong that they don't want to know about. They do it for greed because it's positions of power or money and they have a financial interest in something. Or the last one, ego. Just because they think they can. And the last one's like the most, like the one where I said, well, maybe there is an exception to like somebody not wanting to wake up. I worked in the state of Illinois for 4 years, and People always accused me and my colleagues of being corrupt, evil, vile people. And at the end of the day, these are hard-working, honest people who are trying to help out. Now, corruption, though, what does that look like? Corruption is a thing that I think kind of came out from like the Chicago story. Marginalized communities, people just trying to help each other out. And one thing that I think our city and most government positions have in trouble with, this is not unique to Chicago at all. This is everywhere. This is corporate. This is, government. This is education. There's nepotism
Hmm.
and favoritism.
100%.
And
Yep.
when people there's a thing called Shackman, that was a decree that got entered against the city of Chicago.
Mm.
And what happened was this attorney named Shackman and so brought all these lawsuits saying there was a bunch of cronyism and everything from I think it was I don't want to see, but I think it was Mayor Washington's like
Okay.
administration where a lot of people who supported him would get jobs and everything working for the government. And in turn they get these lucrative pensions that we all talked about.
You're right.
And so it's become like a game and a system. And I think like part of it is like this pension problem that we have. It's like, oh, like so and so is about to retire and everything. Well, why don't we give them a quick little promotion and stuff to this and a promotion to that so that when they do retire, their salary's really high.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thing. And it's that kind of like, favoritism or expectation and everything that's where like I'd say like, we see corruption. Nobody means anything wrong with it. That's a classic example everybody sees, whether
Yeah.
you're a cop, a school teacher, a fireman, public worker, local person. And so it really doesn't make it a meritocracy. It makes it more of a I guess I want to say like some kind of rite of passage or something.
Uh,
And so, what does corruption look like? Corruption comes from human elements. It's the fact that we get familiar with people. When I, get very familiar with one person and say, hey, so and so, like, you get familiarity. You know me, I know you.
right.
Like, you want to kind of bend the rules for that person because you feel bad, That's not corruption, but in a sense, they just chose not to follow the rules and
Yeah.
everything. They turned a blind eye.
Yep.
And so when people say corruption is bad, it's a ban on our society. Yeah, it's bad because it really hurts the bottom line. But at the end of the day, there's no bad intent when people do it unless they're clearly trying to like steal money.
Okay. Also, Ben the lawyer, we know that you've also had some great accomplishments with celebrities and artists, right?
Yeah, well, me.
So there's two things I want to ask. One, well, let me just straight up. What's an advice you want to give to like major big artists to be aware about, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of lawyers just trying to get a quick buck, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion. So like, what's something that they should be aware about before or considering a lawyer or an attorney?
I think a lawyer or an attorney should be the first person that you look out for. But I've said it in a couple videos. You always want to make sure that your lawyer is not taking a cut of your deal.
Okay.
Especially in your initial early one. I mean, yes, there are lawyers who take cuts of your deals and they do earn it. Okay. They do earn that right. And this is not a contingency agreement where they say, hey, if I sue and get you X amount of money, I want X percent. And sometimes there's lawyers who go, if I can negotiate you a better deal, I want X percent, Those kinds of deals are all right. Okay. But the one where it really sticks out, and I know I just said it was all right, I'd like to stress is when a lawyer is actively shopping you and, playing the role of the manager for you, and they're not taking a flat fee or an hourly rate, and they're just taking a flat percentage, they have a financial interest in your contract, whatever type of entertainment or business person you are.
Okay.
And so when they put themselves in the position of saying, hey, I have a financial interest in something, they want to sell you to the highest bidder. The person who's going to give them the most money up front and one go in pocket now. And they don't care about the back end of the contract. Great if it does come through and stuff, but they want to get their money now. And so this really kills a lot of artists, a lot of deals, because they go, wait, I needed, 70, I got 80, 70K, but my manager just took 20, 25% of it, or, my lawyer is taking 20, 25% of it. And so managers, if they help grow and develop like that person, that's great, like it's usually their reward or their payment for,
Right.
investing early on. But a lawyer doing that, it strikes me as wrong morally because think about this. You're not paying me enough money.
Right.
I'm going to kill the deal, even though it might be the best deal for your client.
Hmm. And who are one of the major big artists that you've represented? I don't know if you could say that.
I'd rather not say.
Not? Okay. So, like, is there any big artists that you've represented or worked for?
I think the artists everyone should be looking out for right now 13 Degrees, Say So Cupid, Ghostly Jose, and this guy named Rain Christian.
Okay.
Okay, like you're gonna see a lot of movement blowing up with them. Oh, and Demps, Jamie Demps in country music. I know like these are my clients and everything, but I like to work with artists that are blowing up. And if I could say all the things they're doing behind the scenes, I'd say tap in now, before it's too late.
Okay. You heard that? Okay. But what do you think about this? Is this something for me, right?
hmm
How important do you think prenups are in marriages? Like, how, I don't know how you haven't handled that, but like, how do you see that?
Yeah, so prenups, if you're a celebrity, are very, very important. People get very upset about it because it's like, how dare you think about us like ending our relationship so early on and everything. But really, if you're a business owner, and you're with another high net worth person, I think it's something that you need to think about. Now, granted, if you're there's this big disparity and everything that's kind of cold. That could be the mother of your children,
Right.
but it's up to every person. But prenups are there to essentially establish, like, look, anything that was owned prior and stuff that might be owned by one person will be owned by everybody, or one thing that's owned by one person stays with that person, such as if they're receiving a large inheritance, you're not going to get, half of that.
Well, Benjamin, no. I wanted to make this between 30 to 45, and we're hitting that mark right there. Is there anything that you would want to ask me, or something that you felt like I didn't ask you that you would want to say?
Um, yeah, I think I'd say this. So this is a podcast for people in their 20s, right?
Well, the whole conception of why I called it in your 20s, you don't have to be 20s. It's just that when you're in your 20s, so many doors open.
Yeah.
Right? You're 18, you think, I'm going to get married at 24, or your parents are saying by 22, you should have this and that, right? Because they had it. Doors open and close. And I just feel like in your 20s, you're very in an adventure.
Yeah.
Right? It's in your 20s, right? You're 32. And I feel like your life's beginning because now you have more income, more experience, and you still have the energy. So, like,
I don't know about that last one, but
but that's why I called it in your 20s, because everything starts pretty much in your 20s, because that's when you're already fully grown. You could say an adult, but you're confused. And I feel like maybe you were there at one point. But that's why it's called in your 20s. Yeah.
Yeah. So I tell a lot of artists this. Don't be too open or don't be too closed-minded, understand that, you might think life needs to look a certain way by a certain time, and you'll kind of realize, okay, that hyper realistic version that I wanted, or that unrealistic version that I thought of myself, is just not something I really wanted. I wanted to go to Harvard and Yale Law School because those are like the top ones.
Right.
My dad went to a big Ivy League school, and that was always my big dream. Instead, I went to a school called Northern Arizona University, aka NAU, or not a university.
Yeah.
And I was really upset with myself at the first time because, I had all these big hopes and dreams to go to these big schools. And I got into some great schools, but I didn't get into those Ivy League's elite schools that I wanted to. And I really took it hard on myself. And, my best friend, who's actually now passed away and everything, ended up like, saying, I went to this school and you should come with me. And it was my dad was like, what the heck? Like, you have all these other schools. And it was weird. I ended up picking this school. And I realized when I left high school, I was a royal jerk. I was super pretentious. I thought I was better than everybody. I had this big ego that was completely undeserved. And going to an environment I completely unplanned, like, essentially having a knockdown and like having to work my way back up, really built a lot of character. I remember my first job out of college as a history major was washing dishes at a restaurant and everything.
Humbling.
Yeah, and it was really weird. And I kind of had this big realization that no matter what job I was doing, whether it was big or small, working commercial production in LA or washing dishes or learning how to become a wine cook, I realized like I had to work hard at it no matter what. And it was this big ethos that really stuck with me. So that when I became a lawyer, I realized like, look, no matter what the job is, big or small, whether it's making copies or doing the most minute tasks, like it has to be taken seriously and be done right. And so what I tell a lot of people is, the journey that you take is unique to you. The mistakes that you make are unique to you. The experiences that you deal with, whether it's at home, through work, or through relationships, are things that you have to bear, but they build you and make you who you are. They say your personality doesn't become full until you're 28. I don't really agree with that. I don't think I really developed my personality or who I was till I was 30,
Mhm.
But what I tell people if we're cutting a quick promo is this: don't give up, only stay the course, and you'll find out that the version that you end up being is better than the version you envisioned.
I like that. I like that. Very humble words.
Thanks,
Ben,
man.
thank you, Ben. Thank you
Yeah.
for your time, man.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for real.